Women Achievers focuses on inspirational achievements of women in leadership positions. Nkoyo Toyo is a distinguished lawyer, development activist, and politician. She graduated from Union Secondary School in 1974 before embarking on her legal journey at Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, Kaduna in 1975. She earned her law degree from the Nigerian Law School in 1980 and later obtained a Master of Laws LLM degree from the University of Lagos in 1994.
I started as a lawyer many years ago. I was called to the bar in 1980, which makes me really old, I guess. And then I moved on to do a lot of work around women's rights, initially just with FIDA, the Federation of Women Lawyers. And then subsequently, when I relocated to Lagos, I didn't want to get myself into a regular job because the regular job meant leaving my young children at home or coming back late home and everything. So I just went into what my heart was all about. My heart was about working around the rights of women and the rights of vulnerable communities. So I quickly moved into that space.
In 1994, after co-founding Gender and Development Action, GADA, she collaborated with global organizations such as USAID and UNIFEM to enhance the Development Index for Women in Nigeria. Her efforts encompassed projects related to women in public life, sexual and reproductive health, and equal access to employment.
That favor to do the work around women and around the rights of marginalized groups began to veer me into the policy space because if you remember before Beijing, there was very little in terms of a definition of what Nigerian women were about, what they were looking for, what they were going for, and all of that. I must say that the closest we came to any attempt at doing anything was under the Better Life program, which was done by the wife of the president at the time. And alternative voices were beginning to say that that space had already been taken over by the wife of the president, so it was important that ordinary feminist and women's rights activists also define the space for themselves and begin to talk about what it is they were trying to do, which was different from what the Better Life program was about. That's how I got into the policy space, basically. And then we started working around the policy for women, and later on we got the Ministry of Women Affairs, then later on we started working around the question of the gender policy.
In 2008, Nkoyo's interest in politics led her to appointment as Nigeria's ambassador to Ethiopia and Djibouti, while also serving as the country's permanent representative to the African Union and the Economic Commission for Africa. In this role, she played a crucial part in negotiating a comprehensive peace agreement for South Sudan. Recognizing the need for a broader understanding of governance, she pursued a Master's in Governance at the Institute of Development Studies, University of Sussex, in 2001. She furthered her education at Harvard University, obtaining a Master's in Public Administration, MPA, as an Edward S. Mason Fellow, also in 2001.
In 2002, we met again as women on the platform, and we said to ourselves, we cannot be asking to be in spaces of governance without engaging in politics. If we wanted to change the dynamics and we wanted to change the conversations, we had to be in the room. So how do you get into the room? You have to go into politics. So the politics we play is driven by money. It's led by big old men who are very influential and have all sorts of networks of influence which they use to define and dominate the party. The recruitment of young women into things like the mentoring program, which I participated in when Funke was at the helm of the fund, and things like that. It's a very useful tool in bringing and throwing women into the mainstream political space. Once you throw them in, they have to do something with the space. You have to put them in. Then you begin to say, okay, I'm inside, what do I do? Then you begin to figure out what you have to do. And which was my story. I was recruited by Josephine Aneni. We had a meeting of all the 3 women political parties at the time. So these 3 women had come from the movement. They had all been activists in their own rights. FIDA, all sorts of women's activist groups. So they came into that space and said, look at the election of 1999, there are no women. So what do? We have to bring in women deliberately. And Josephine said to me, Nkoyo, you talk about this thing about women and the policy space and women and governance and women and participation in politics and all of that. Why are you not involved? That's how I got into politics. So Josephine Aneni called us, myself, Joy Zilo, and I'm forgetting who the third person was. There were 3 of us. And we went to the field. Joy, all of us lost because we had no knowledge of politics. We had no knowledge of the political parties. And we were going to the mainstream political parties. So they were very jealous of their space. And all of those spaces were meant for men. It wasn't meant for women. The women who got it had to get it through men. And I was coming with the human rights mentality. This is my right. I have a right to be voted in. All I need to do is to get myself on the ground, do the work, become the yes we can kind of candidate and work the journey through. Which I did, and I got very, very successful on the ground. But the party is a different animal from the populace. You need the ticket of the party before you can begin to talk to the general public. I was talking to the general public, and the party guys were just looking at me and saying, okay, we'll see how she'll come across and get become a candidate of the party. But what was good about what I did was I went to a community which they had no control over, the general public, and then those ones now started to make a demand on them that they wanted me as their candidate. But of course, the party has its own gatekeepers. The gatekeepers locked the party out on me, and I couldn't get in.
In 2011, she was elected as a member of the National House of Representatives, where she represented Calabar Odukbani constituency of Cross River State, focusing on social development and investment. Notably, she championed a resolution addressing the status of the Bakassi people left stateless for a decade after ICJ judgment. In 2022, Nkoyo announced a candidacy for the 2023 Cross River State gubernatorial race, challenging the prevailing male governance in Cross River State's leadership landscape. Nkoyo Toyo has continued to be a trailblazer advocating for equality, development and good governance through her remarkable career.
Well, in that case, because I was defining the space for myself and I was walking through my experiences as an activist, it was really my work. But I must say that being the language of women's rights and human rights was a very powerful one. However, even though we were part of the human rights community, as it were, in that rights community, some people felt they were more of the rights activists, more of the dominant voices than the women's voices in that space. When we launched into our own space, we were king or queen in our space. But when we came into the bigger space, we had to struggle for our voices to be heard in that space. The definition of self. If people don't see you in a room, you don't exist. You have to be seen, and your voice has to come with the seeing. It's not just being in the room and being said, oh, there's a pretty girl sitting at that corner of the room, or that's a young woman who looks good enough to talk, or she sounds interesting. It's actually that what you say becoming a part of the agenda That's why I went into policy, because it is in the policy space that you begin to ask and put things on the agenda. So bringing in a feminist agenda into those progressive spaces, and now I am speaking of a very specific environment where you thought you were dealing with people who understood your language, and yet that language was not quite understood in those spaces. The story of all women who are running election in any dominant party today is the ticket of the party. Uche Ekunife worked in this last election in Anambra. She had resources, she had everything you would think anybody needed to win an election. And still she didn't win the election. The story is that they said, Anambra said they are not ready for a woman as their leader. What is it about being a governor that is not suited to the woman? But we can allow them to be senators. Out of the 3 senators in Anambra today, 2 are women, Stella Odua and Uche Ekunife, but they can't be governors. So there is something going on there which defines the spaces where women are able to access and where women cannot access. So in my experience, I have the strength of an activist. I have the conviction that this is something I wanted to do, because these are some of the things that enable you to do what you have to do. The conviction, the passion, the belief in what you are trying to do. However, the problem was that we did not have the people in the room, the spaces, the individuals in the room, which could help us transcend from just having an aspiration to beginning to serve ourselves inside the party. What has happened over the years is that I have pushed, persevered. Now nobody dares to talk about your husband is a Bible. I am now in the interest of, I'm in the process of running for the governorship of Cross River State. Do you know what somebody told me just yesterday? Oh, what will your husband be? First man. I mean, that's the way they begin to throw language at you to make you look like it's an aberration, and because it is an aberration, you cannot fit into that mold, and we shouldn't allow you to go forward. Perseverance, tenacity. You have to be tenacious. You have to believe in something and hold on to it. The connection between your belief and the tenacity. And once you get to that point where you are a leader in your own right, nobody begins to put gates on your door. Your doors are open. So it is that ability to transcend from just talking about what you want to do, what you want to achieve, to doing it, demonstrating it, and being able to hold on to that. It helped me to run 4 elections. I ran 4 elections. It helped me to win 1. It helped me in the process of even losing to become an ambassador. I became an ambassador of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to Ethiopia. I was also the permanent representative of Nigeria to the African Union, the Economic Commission for Africa, the ECA, as well as the representative of Nigeria in the Peace and Security Council of the African Union. The tenacity, the refusal to be undervalued, the refusal to be seen as just another woman in the room. It was just, I'm not against other women in the room, but I am a woman, and that agenda I represent must count. You must first of all know why you are running. You know why are you running? It is why you are running that makes you go after it with the kind of energy and the kind of force that you want it to be. Though I had never been in doubt as to why I was running. I was running because I knew that I had a role to play in making that space work for myself and work for other women. I represented a constituency that has been marginalized, that has been excluded, and I knew that once I got into that space, it's like now the tenacity with which I'm pursuing the gubernatorial election in Cross River State. If you can imagine, if you have a first woman governor, the ceiling is broken forever. Because the story, first of all, is we've made it. The second story is that, is she a better quality governor than the other men? I can tell you that that is something that is going to be not in doubt. If I become the governor, the example will be too strong and too convincing for anybody to ever say a woman cannot lead us. And it may even be the beginning of a woman as a president in Nigeria. The most important lesson there is that your relationship with the party must be well anchored. You must be well anchored in the party. The party must know you. The party must be able to say, this is one of our materials that we absolutely need at all levels, you know. So, yeah, getting into that space, being defined by that space, and making that space, owning that space in some ways, so that when you go into the room, nobody is like, what is she looking for here? Who is this one? You know. So you don't need to be introduced by anybody because you're already known in the space. That's one of the major products. I would say that this experience has taught me how to take that whole political party engagement as the most serious part of your political journey. For women, really, it is until you try that you know whether you win or you will not win. By not trying, you just compromise yourself. Now, a lot of women will say, where do I get the money from? Part of the trying by women should also be a statement to the fact that all elections should not be about money. For instance, people say to me, where are you going to get the money to compete with the men? And I say, let them show me where having the money alone has provided good governance. Some of the worst governors we have in Nigeria today are the money bags. So, if we can now demonstrate by our coming out that, look, you did have people who had money, look at the kind of government you have. Now are you more interested in the person who has the money, or are you more interested in the person who can do the job? Part of coming out by women is to be able to make that argument, and I think that more women should come out. So as we speak, the number of women who are even ready to run, already they are saying it's not the job of a woman. Then some of them will say, look at all the money Ekunife spent, it didn't work, so we shouldn't try. That's part of the challenge that we need to overcome. Women need to try and let the rest of it be history for them.